Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heads Up, the weekly webcast and podcast of the National Headache Foundation. I'm Dr. Lindsay Weitzel, migraine strategist, founder of the Facebook group Migraine Nation, and chronic daily migraine survivor. I'm super excited to tell you that I am here this week with Sarah Shepard, who is the executive director of the Migraine at Work program. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, Lindsay. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited.
Thanks for being here. So we are going to discuss migraine at work, being someone who has migraine at your job. We're also going to discuss the Migraine at Work program, what it is, what it can do for us. It's super exciting. So let's just start by talking a little bit about Sarah and her history of migraine at work, because she's super passionate about this. So Sarah, can you just tell us a little bit about your migraine history?
Sure. So my migraine history started before I even knew I had migraine. As a child, I always experienced motion sickness and other sensitivities. And when I was in middle school and high school, I never went anywhere without Advil. And then in my mid-20s and my first corporate job, I was a manager and, taking on a lot of new responsibilities. I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I tend to stress myself out. And I had my first migraine attack at that time. It was quite scary. I thought I was having an aura and I thought I was losing my vision. And so I went to the emergency room and found out I was having migraine. And so that was my first experience with migraine. And then slowly it progressed and got a little bit worse, up and down throughout my career. And then a couple years ago, it turned chronic. And it is still chronic, but I have it under control now. So
Okay.
I am today.
All right. Well, what sort of work were you doing exactly? Were you always at a desk? What was it like?
Yeah, I was, sitting at a desk, mainly in front of a computer, looking at a lot of numbers in very small print. And, that wasn't great for my eyes.
Right.
Leading a team, having to deliver on numbers. So a lot of pressure on me. But yeah, nothing physically exerting, just,
Right.
using my brain. But when I had an attack, it was pretty hard to keep going through the day. And, especially at that time, I was experiencing auras.
Yeah.
So I had to, thankfully at that time, we had relatively private seating areas. So I had sort of walls around me and I was able to put my head down on my desk and wait until I could see again. So I can kind of hide out there until it was better. But yeah, I mean, I didn't really tell many people what was going on. Just my direct, reports knew that I was having a migraine attack.
Right. So that was another question I was going to ask, because so many people struggle with deciding if they should hide the problem at work. And I'm sure this is something that the Migraine at Work program deals with, or if they should discuss it with their colleagues, their managers, etc. So did you sort of hide it at first, or what did you do?
Yeah, I did. I didn't tell many people about it. It was so new to me. Like, I didn't really know people in my life that had migraine disease. And so I actually didn't really even fully understand the stigma that surrounds migraine
Right.
disease. But I did start to feel that a bit, and I wasn't comfortable sharing with everybody. So I think it comes depends on the severity, right? And how comfortable you are and what accommodations you need and how frequent they are. Some people, right, migraine is a spectrum disorder. So some people can, function, but most people can't when they have a migraine attack. So, at that time I was able to get through the day, but.
So speaking of accommodations, what did you do? Did you find ways to create your own accommodations? Did you have to go to HR? What exactly did you do?
Yeah. So, well, I should say, so what I was just talking about was when my migraine attacks were episodic.
Right.
When they became chronic, I was, in status migrainous for a couple of weeks. And that kept me, at home for quite a long time. And, um, you know, I told my boss that I was having a migraine attack, and it was kind of like nobody really understood, how can you have a migraine attack for this long? You've been
Hmm.
sick for a couple weeks.
Right.
And so, when I finally back into the office, I did, explain to my manager what was going on and that I needed to be able to work from home when I was having an attack. And so I got a laptop for myself to keep at home so that I didn't have to lug, because I worked in New York City. So I'm taking the subway and walking a long ways to and from, and lugging my laptop, wasn't great for my neck pain
Mhm.
that comes with my migraine attacks. So I got a laptop to keep at home so that if I woke up and I wasn't feeling well, I could just stay at home that day. I told my immediate team, and we, at that company, it was very open seating. And so, fluorescent lights everywhere, and, noisy and et cetera. So we would always find a quiet conference room that had windows so that we had natural light, and I could keep the lights off in the meeting room. So keep
Oh,
that off. And my team was very receptive to that and understanding, and they could see, how the migraine, you know, was really affecting me, because, I had known them for a while. And so they were very empathetic and understanding. And so it was like, sorry, can we have no lights on? And
yeah.
even when it got darker to like 5 p.m., we would try to keep the lights off as long as possible.
So
Right.
we always talk about absenteeism and presenteeism when it comes to migraine and working. So were those issues for you? Did you notice both those things? Did you have trouble? Well, why don't you talk about what
Yeah.
presenteeism and yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, I think a lot of times, we of course know what being absent means, but
Hmm.
we don't really think about what presenteeism means. And
Right.
so that is, say you have a cold and you're not feeling, 100%, but you
Right.
don't want to use a sick day or a vacation day, however your work may manage it, to call out and stay home for the day. So you go into the office and you fight through, but you're not at your 100% capacity,
Mm.
because you've just got this, pressure in your brain and your nose is running, etc. So presenteeism is really common with migraine disease because it's of course invisible. So you have a cold, people can tell you have a cold. You come in and you're working through a migraine, it's not really easy to see, unless you're talking about it. So presenteeism, yes, is really working when you're not at 100%. It is very costly actually for employers because they are unaware, that this is happening, and they're not able to track it, financially. So they can see how many, days their employees take off, et cetera, and understand what that's actually costing them because you're being paid for those days. They can't measure it as well with presenteeism. And so it's not something that people are aware of. And, a lot of employers don't even realize that many of their employees have migraine, just because of that exact, reason, right? Is
Right.
they're calling out saying, I have a migraine attack. I can't come in today. People are going into the office. I don't want to use another day. And what am I going to say? I have to make up another excuse, right?
Mhm.
It got to the point for me where I I felt like if I wasn't honest, that people were going to think that I was just taking the day off to, go away for a long weekend or
Right.
enjoy a day off. So I wanted to be honest with my manager and let them know that I was in fact having a migraine attack, and this does happen from time to time, and here's what I need when that happens.
Particular was it when you went chronic that you decided to start talking about it? Was that the particular point that you started talking about it? Because it's interesting to me.
Yeah.
It is more common now to be able to talk about it. For example, I hid my migraine for forever, and in no way do I think that's the right thing to do.
Right.
But back then, I was also working in a field where I knew they wouldn't like to hear about it. For example,
Right.
and so was it when it went chronic? Was that the clue to yourself that you were like, okay, I have to talk now?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I was very open about it at that
Mhm.
point. I would say before that, just before that, I had a manager who also had migraine. And
Oh,
she
wow.
was open about it. She would, get sick to her stomach and have to leave. And her team knew. And so I felt comfortable, of course, opening up to her about it. And I think, that's something we'll talk about with migraine at work, but it's so important, right? Because it all starts with leadership and how people respond and operate in an organization. And if you're comfortable, if your leader is comfortable talking about it, then why shouldn't everybody else be? So that was really great for me. But at the same time, she was the only one who really knew about it, and that was kind of confident between her and I. Then when it became chronic, I told, everyone knew. And I felt like that was the best way for me because they would understand when I asked to dim the lights in a conference room or, switch sides on a table because the glare from the sunlight coming into the room, was trigger me. I couldn't sit next to so and so because they put on heavy cologne. And so I really used it to my advantage by telling people so that they were more receptive to what might normally be seen as like odd questions or requests.
So, can you go ahead and tell us about the Migraine at Work program so that we
Yeah,
know what it is and what it can do for us?
of course. So, Migraine at Work is an organization that is led by people with migraine or experts in migraine. And so, we've put this program together to help others, get the help that they need for migraines. All about educating employers and employees on migraine. Everything from migraine prevalence, symptoms, triggers, accommodations, etc. Um, and just raising awareness in the office so that we can remove stigma,
Mhm.
make it a environment where people feel comfortable talking about their disorder and going to HR, going to the manager, and telling them what they need. And we don't want people with migraine to feel like they have to hide it. Often there's a lot of, as stigma around migraine, and people can be feel that we say, oh, it's a headache, right? And a headache is another term for an annoyance. And so when we say we have a migraine, a lot of people, feel like they may be seen as weak or lazy. Um, and so, we don't talk about it. But if we can change the understanding and the knowledge about what migraine disease actually is, then, people hopefully will be, treated with validation and understanding that this is a serious condition that needs to be, talked about.
Coming from someone who hid my chronic migraine pretty much my whole life, there was a point where I did have to start talking about it because I was getting procedures that kept me out of
Yeah,
work for a very extended period of time. And then it was obvious I had to
right.
explain what was wrong. But I just knew that my particular environment was not going to be receptive to me talking about
Mm,
migraine.
yeah.
And so I think this program is so important. Can you tell us the website and that where we can go to learn about
Yeah.
migraine at
Yeah.
work?
It's migraineatwork.org. And we have a couple different social channels as well. You can follow us at Migraine at Work on Facebook, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. What we're really, the organization is about is empowering leaders in the workplace to be a champion for migraine and to, be the ones that kind of get this going at their office, whether it's an office or a warehouse or a store that you work in, being that leader that makes everyone else feel comfortable and spreads the awareness and advocates for it. So you can find us, take a look at our LinkedIn page because we have private groups that you can join for employees and executives. And we want that to be a forum for people to come together and discuss what's going on in their office and how they can make a difference.
All right. Well, before we go, is there anything else you'd like to add about our migraine at work episode here?
I think the only other thing I would say is more of kind of a general word of advice is that, if you have migraine, whether episodic or chronic, or you have it once a year, I was really hesitant to take the time to see a proper neurologist and get the right treatment. I'm someone that doesn't like to just pop, medicine whenever I have a stomach ache or something. So
Mhm.
I didn't want to be taking these medications for migraine, and that was really a mistake on my part, because when my migraine attacks were severe and debilitating, I didn't have the right resources or tools to recover quickly. So I would say, and then when they got really bad, it took a long time to find treatment and to get things under control. So I would just, advise you to get that medication in your toolbox and have it available if you need it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for being with us today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today on Heads Up. And join us again next week on the weekly webcast and podcast of the National Headache Foundation.